Ark Survival of the Fittest, often referred to as SOTF, I'll say SOTF, was initially introduced in 2015 as a total conversion mod for the game Ark. It featured a Hunger Games style competition where players either solo or in tribes fought to the death in an ever shrinking arena. The game was unique in its incorporation of Ark's dinosaur taming mechanics, adding a new layer of strategy to the Battle Royale genre. However, in 2017, Wildcard announced they would no longer be developing SOTF, focusing all resources on Ark instead. So the game was left to collect dust. Being officially released in 2016, it is one of the earliest Battle Royale games to hit the scene, so initially the extremely small player base can be surprising. I only got into Survival of the Fittest recently, but I've gotta say it's fun. Drops are plentiful, the taming process is straightforward, and PvP is frequent and far more balanced than the base game. Cheat developers don't code for SOTF, there's no use, no one plays. Compared to other battle royales, Survival of the Fittest is extremely outdated and clunky. While most games offer simplified queues, a progression system, multiple arenas, and load times under 2 minutes per match, SOTF takes a different approach. Each lobby you join is a new instance, which means a new survivor, new tribe, new customizations, and downloading a flag design every single time. Then, in the 2 minutes you have left, you desperately scoop up any untribed sucker that may be left. This also means there is no sense of progression to the game, no cosmetics, and no standalone friend system. Despite these issues, and despite being abandoned since 2017, Survival of the Fittest has a mostly positive review on Steam, and complaints online are far and few between. Few and far between. After learning the ropes of Survival of the Fittest, I reached out into its community and got to chat with a veteran Ark player and accomplished streamer, Mr. Dolphin. Disclaimer, this gameplay footage is just me. If Mr. Dolphin were playing, I'm sure it would have gone much better. So if you have flack to give it to me. You stream on Twitch, right?
Yes. I also make content on YouTube, but not as much, mostly focusing on Twitch. I've been probably streaming for more than 6 years. Been doing art for like 8 years, actually.
Oh wow. Okay. So your streaming has it mostly been focused on Ark then?
Art, mostly, yeah.
Okay. How much of that has been Survival of the Fittest?
Most of it. Split my time between Survival of the Fittest and Ark.
Do you still play?
No, Survival of the Fittest is I'm not playing that as much anymore because when they announced the ASA version, everyone pretty much stopped playing. It's just like me, they're just waiting for the new version. They pretty much just after the announcement in 2017 that they were shutting down Survival of the Fittest, it pretty much just went quiet. At that point, we were like, okay, we're probably not gonna see Survival of the Fittest maybe until R2, and then they surprised us on December last year. We're like, hey, we're coming out with a new version,
Mhm.
and that got everyone that used to play SOTF by surprise, and yeah, here we are. We haven't had that much interaction when it comes to SOTF since 2017.
Mhm. How did you first get into Survival of the Fittest? What drew you to the game?
Well, it was because of the first tournament when I think back then in 2015, they invited a bunch of streamers to play on this tournament that would last like 5 hours, and I play with my buddy called Apollo, and since we got invited, no one knew how to play. Like they were just like, "Hey, we have this game mode. We're gonna stream it on Twitch. You're welcome to participate." And no one knew how to play the game, which was just the first time for everybody during that match, and we won that, and that's how we got into Survival the Fittest. Account wise, they're only giving out the SOTF trophies, and that was only to a few people, maybe like 8 total out of the entire art community,
Mhm.
which was the Survival the Fittest trophy. The first one was given to me is account bound, was given to me in Apollo, so only he and I are the only ones that can spawn that one trophy out of everyone in Arc.
Wow.
And then there's one from the second tournament, which I gave to Icebox, and I forgot his teammate, but they are the only two that can spawn that one trophy.
Mhm.
So a couple others that won this third tournament, and that's really it. it was a lot of fun. It was more of more like a Hunger Games kind of game where there was like I think there were like you go back to the boss on Twitch. There was a lot of secret alliances and things like that because someone made an alliance during the match and we had to make an alliance just like in the movie,
Hmm.
and that made it much more interesting in my opinion. But yeah, it was fun. It was like a new experience because no one had played a survival battle royale game like that before, and that came out before H1C1.
Right.
Before PUBG, before any of those games.
So, how did winning the first tournament like impact your streaming career? How was it going at that point?
Yeah, at that point, like I was not really well known, and when that came out, that my popularity on Twitch, and then still for my buddy, and it really just went from there. Like I got partner streamer, and then in this survival league, they asked me to cast a couple of tournaments. I played in a couple of tournaments, and it just went up from there. And nowadays, I'm just like I just don't stream as much as I used to be.
Hmm.
But I do miss the whole esports side of ARC, which was really fun.
So, you mentioned that you had played an early access of the base game of Ark, and your name is actually in the credits after you beat the Overseer, right?
Yes, and on Gen 2 as well.
Kind of give me your overall opinion of the game since you've been around since Ground Zero.
Um, it's it's a complicated relationship because um like during early access we were volunteer testers, so we had a lot of input. We had a lot of connections, or we will talk directly to the devs and to the CEO as well, Jeremy at the time. Well, I think he's still CEO. And back then we would like give input and like they would make changes, and there was a lot more communication with the community. Nowadays, it's like there is some communication, but it's not the way it used to be. Because they're a much bigger company than they were before. So maybe that's why.
When did that
But
change? Was it kind of a progressional thing?
it was a progressional thing. I think the more DLCs, the bigger the company got. It was just like it was hard to reach people at the top, which I think is fine. I mean, I think the game they will still listen to the community and make changes and add things like there's a few creatures in the game that are from my direct input, like the Noglin, the Shadowmane, uh, some of the range dinos from Extinction. But I think it's pretty cool that they have added things that the community have vouched for over the years, which is cool.
Obviously, most of the community has a pretty negative opinion of Wildcard right now, and a lot of that is contingent on some Snail Games actions recently, which we'll get into. Can you think of anything that Wildcard is doing right now that is communicative with the community that you see as genuine?
Oh yeah. Well, the on the PV, you have to think of it this way: like they have things that have to do with the PvE side and the PvP side of things.
Hmm.
When it comes to the PvE side, it's a the PvE side of Arc is much bigger than the PvP side, right? So there's things like they have talked with the community recently, for example, like doing the new building systems, some of the stuff that all the streamers, YouTubers have like suggested, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll add that. So they've done those things, like they've been putting things that the community have requested. It's just that there's not they're not very clear on exactly how that works yet.
Do you think we have good things in store?
Well, honestly, we don't know when it comes to the PvP side of things because we're getting a queue up system, which is different from what we have right now, where we have to like sim and you just click join and wait if we get in. Um, and the PvP side of things, to say we're getting some balance changes, but we still don't know what kind of balance changes we got. Like redesign of how the cave system works. Are we going to be able to build on caves? So there's a lot of things that we don't know yet,
Hmm.
but at least they're letting us know they're planning on making those changes,
Right.
especially like the whole how we're going to be able to deal with caves, because caves are like very strong in Arc,
Hmm.
and it's very difficult to raid them because the choke points are so tiny.
Hmm.
It's really hard to get a dino in there.
And obviously, those things are as well as the base UE5 upgrade and mesh fixes and better cheat defense, everything like that. And speaking of cheats, obviously, official PvP server cheating was probably much different than any cheating that would have shown up in Survival of the Fittest. Were there any instances of cheat development or cheating in Survival of the Fittest that you can remember?
No, because the only thing that would happen in Survival of the Fittest was aimbotting, and aimbotting was it was hard to tell if somebody was actually really good or they were just an aimbot. And because we didn't have a replay system, it was more of a hey, we'll make this report, and somebody is more people keep reporting that one player because back then we had the survival league, so we would know who was that player because he would accumulate points, and then a dev would look into like, hey, is that guy actually in buttons? Like a dev would go and watch this match, and and if he was actually aimbotted, he would be disqualified from like qualifying for the big tournament, which would be a money tournament. So there was like a way to like filter out those players from actually getting actual money. But there, I mean, might be a few people that got through that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, like any other major exploit for SOTF, if somebody was like speed hacking or flying or something like that, it would be very obvious. So we just report that play, and that player would be banned. Because the last thing we wanted was that person to accumulate points to qualify for the morning tournaments.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what things do you have to look forward to in the ASA release of Survival of the Fittest? Are there things that you really want to see?
Well, so the survival defense community is kind of split with the recent version, the latest version we have. Like a lot of people want, a lot of the OG players want guns, and a lot of the players was like, "Hey, we like the current system. We don't want guns, right?" Because like the fear of aimbotting that happens very often in normal arc.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the health of that game and to expand the community, I think they need to go back and do a version of both, where this is the newest version that we have, but with guns added, because I think gunplay is what's missing from the current version, which added a different skill or a different path. Like for example, the 2015, 2016 version, you had the choice of go purely dino army, in barely any guns, or just you purely maybe 1, 2 TRXs at the highest level and just mostly guns. And there was like different skill set also getting your dinos, right? Because you had to build different army compositions like late before the late tournaments that people would do Bronto and Rex, and that would be really it. And they just mostly stick to guns because they would just be on top of the Brontos and snipe from there. Nowadays with this version, it's more like build a dino army, left click, and maybe reposition your army, and that was really the skill there.
Obviously, like you said, the PvP side is a lot different than the PvE side. So a lot of the controversy with TEA and Snail Games that has been going on really only affects the PvP side. So do you play on official PvP at all?
Yeah, I still play an official PvP. I play official 1X and Conquest.
Okay. Were you connected to the recent bans at all?
I was not banned, but I've been attacked by T/Snail Games a couple times. So there's that.
Okay. What's your experience there?
Oh, it's awful.
I'm sure.
It's like things like I think the first time they attacked us, they threatened us to. They were nice enough to threaten us to not use fabricated snipers. So we're like, okay, we're not gonna use fabs. We're just gonna use shotguns, right?
Mhm.
And and we managed to push them off our server. And then I think the latest one, they were telling one of our guys that he was cheating with tech bow. So it was like, all right, I guess we're not gonna use tech bows. And that was really it. So the experience with T is it's weird. It's just weird. So in a way, it's kind of a good thing that a lot of these new exploits are showing up, because that way, from my understanding, Wildcard is working towards fixing those before ASA, so that doesn't happen on ASA. I think most people that play Arc, their reality is they're probably gonna buy ASA,
Mhm.
and they're probably gonna continue supporting games made by Wildcard. But then when it comes to supporting games made by Snail Games, then that's a whole different story.
Or if there are any messages that you could send to the community right now about everything that's going on in the wake of ASA and possibly ARC 2, what would you say?
I would say just keep yourself informed, especially on what's going on, because I know the problem with Arc is that the community is split heavily between PvE and PvP. If you go a lot of the social media and Facebook groups or Reddit, people on Reddit on those don't really care about what happens to the PvP side of things, even though it technically affects everyone, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like the community needs to be just more united in issues that appear in the game, because when Wildcard makes a change, it tends to affect both PvP and PvE. So I would love to see the community a little bit more united when it comes to like issues that pop up.
Mhm. All right. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not really. Just follow me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Mr. Dolphin. It's Mr. Dolphin on YouTube. Mostly doing art content, things like that.
All right, awesome. Well, I will make sure to tune in, and anybody who will be watching, make sure to watch as well. But thank you again so much. For me, an updated survival of the fittest is one of the things I'm hopefully optimistic about. A revamped version of the game is said to be included in the ASA bundle, promising a slew of updates that would bring it up to modern code. We'll see if that happens. Wildcard still needs to give us more, and something needs to be done about Snail Games. Thank you, Mr. Dolphin, for interviewing. Please be sure to check him out. His socials are linked below. I'm putting my all into this, so I appreciate your support. Follow me as well.